I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
It makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
No, I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
Like you said, I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
So as a conservative who thinks that Trump does not have the answers and isn't qualified to be president, what are you going to do this election, if you don't mind saying?
My current plan is to vote either third party or, as I joke to my wife, I might write in my dog, because that's about as good as it seems. But, you know, I think there's a chance, if I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, that I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. Ultimately, I think I'll probably vote third party. I might vote for this new guy who I really like, Evan McMullin, who I actually met the other day. But I think that I'm going to vote third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place.
Donald Trump's new running mate. I will vote for my dog over him. I will vote for a guy I just met, Evan McMullin, or Hillary Clinton, or some other third-party entity I can't even name. I will not vote for him because he is noxious and he is leading us in this country to a very dark place. He calls him a total fraud. In addition to that clip you saw there of him on MSNBC on Hardball with Chris Matthews saying that he believed a woman when she testified in the E. Jean Carroll case that she was sexually assaulted by Trump. He believed her, not Trump. He also liked a tweet around the same time saying that Trump had committed serial sexual assaults. Another one just calling Trump a monster. He has called Trump a moral disaster. He's called him cultural heroin. He has called him reprehensible. He has also called him, quote, an idiot. J.D. Vance is a very good writer. He wrote in a very good New York Times op-ed that, quote, Trump is unfit for our nation's highest office. He wrote to one former roommate about Trump, quote, I go back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical a-hole like Nixon or that he's America's Hitler. How's that for discouraging? End quote. After this weekend's horrific shooting at a Trump rally in Pennsylvania, that assassination attempt against Trump that bloodied the former president, that killed a man, that wounded two others, J.D. Vance, now a U.S. Senator, posted online that it was Democrats' criticism of Trump as anti-democratic that, in his words, quote, led directly to the assassination attempt against Trump. Led directly. Many political observers went on the record this weekend saying that if J.D. Vance was indeed still on the short list to be considered to be Trump's running mate, that online post, that tweet from him this weekend saying that Democrats led directly to the assassination attempt against Trump, that surely would have disqualified him from staying on the short list. But he says that Democrats' criticism of Trump led directly to that assassination attempt, despite the fact that he himself called Trump America's Hitler. J.D. Vance says he has changed, that he no longer thinks all those terrible things that he has said about Trump in the past. And, you know, maybe that's true. Who among us knows what is in a man's heart? But in J.D. Vance's public positions now, there's nothing, literally nothing about Trump that Vance is not endorsing and indeed advancing. You may remember J.D. Vance coming to Trump's criminal trial in New York. He called it a sham trial. And while he was there, he attacked not only the judge in the case, but the judge's family. And he made sure to dress exactly like Trump while he did it. He has decided that he, too, is against windmills. Terrible, ugly windmills, he calls them. One of the weirdest Trump pet peeves of all. J.D. Vance has adopted that now for himself as well, just as he's adopted the red tie, white shirt thing. He calls people convicted for crimes related to the January 6th attack, quote, political prisoners. He says the 2020 election was not a real election. He says he will not commit to accepting the results of the next election in 2024. It is, of course, unusual for a president to run for a second term with a different running mate than they had in their first term. But clearly, Mike Pence was no longer available. Mike Pence not an option for Donald Trump this time around after the violent mob Trump unleashed on the Capitol looked for Mike Pence to try to hang him while Trump egged them on. Vice President Pence has since made history as saying that he explicitly cannot endorse his former running mate for a second term in office. How do you talk yourself into wanting Trump to pick you for this job when the last guy Trump picked for this job, he also nearly got killed when he told an armed violent mob that Pence was the man to blame for all they were so upset about? J.D. Vance told CNN this year that he doesn't think that Mike Pence was ever really in any real danger on January 6th. He also says that had he been Mike Pence, had he been vice president himself on January 6, 2021, he would have thrown out the real electoral votes and done what Trump wanted. The lead story in the New York Times on Saturday night before the terrible shooting happened in Pennsylvania was this story about how Republicans have already laid the groundwork to have their officials all over the country refuse to certify the election results this year. Groups like the Heritage Foundation are saying publicly that some sort of amorphous conditions exist in the country now, right now, that already justify any election official at any level refusing to certify the results. They are already intending that the election results will not be certified. And that is intended, and it may very well prevent any normal count of the vote this year, any normal tally of the votes, including in the Electoral College. The idea is that there will just be chaos in Washington. There will be a fight, some kind of actual fight for power in Washington, instead of it being decided by our votes in the states. Well, now, as of tonight, they've got as a running mate for Trump someone who is committed and who is insisting that there was nothing wrong with what happened on January 6th. It's just that it didn't work. And if he'd been there, it would have worked. So put him in there. As we've been discussing tonight, J.D. Vance wants a national abortion ban. He thinks even rape and incest survivors should be forced to give birth against their will. He thinks women who are being violently abused by their husbands should be made to stay in their marriage. J.D. Vance has a lot to offer in terms of his policy positions that are very unpopular with most of the American public. That said, he does also say that Trump should have been able to seize power despite the vote in 2020. And if you're going to hold power despite the vote, despite the expressed will of the people, then your unpopular positions will never be a problem for you ever again, because nobody gets to vote on who's in office.